Joining me here now on set, former Democratic Senator from Nebraska, Bob Kerrey, also the former governor of Nebraska, and in Washington, D.C., MSNBC contributor and host of the eponymous Hugh Hewitt Show, the one and only Hugh Hewitt. Thanks to both of you for joining us. Senator/Governor Kerrey, let me start with you. We know the FBI is looking into this issue of Russia, its interference, if there's any connections at all with the Trump campaign. We know the House Intelligence Committee has its probe. There's all sorts of controversy over that right now. And now you have the Senate sort of stepping into this today. When you look at the announcement from the Senate, do you think this is the one that sort of official Washington is going to get behind?
No, this is not what they should be doing. We got to worry about North Korea. We got to worry about ISIS. We got to worry about international terrorism. They've got to authorize up to, according to public accounts, close to $80 billion of public money to fund our intelligence agencies, make sure they're modernized for the future.
So you're saying too much Russia?
No, we need an independent commission.
Independent commission?
The Congress should not be doing this. Nobody's going to trust whatever they come up with anyway. These guys need to be spending their time worrying about real threats to the United States of America. And as I said, I mean, Nunes I'm sure he's a fine guy, but he's like a guy who can't swim. He's locked in the deep end of the pool. I mean, he's never going to get to a point where they're going to trust the House. Now we're going to trust the Senate. They're not going to trust, American people aren't going to trust either one of these. But even if they did, Steve, these committees have more important work to do than running down this investigation. You hear the kind of depth and kind of time commitment that's going to be required. These guys are on other committees. They're doing other things as well. I'll get back to it. We got to worry about North Korea. We got to worry about ISIS. They got bigger problems than trying to find out what the Russians did to interfere with our election.
So, Hugh, what do you say to that? Bob Kerrey saying, look, there are other issues out there, believe it or not. Why not have an independent commission step in here? Maybe there'd be a little bit more credibility between the two aisles, and it would allow members of Congress to do other work. What do you say to that?
Well, I respect Senator Kerrey quite a lot, but we disagree for a number of reasons. I want to begin, though, by saying I think he will agree with me on this. The press conference between Chairman Richard Burr and Senator Warner was perhaps the best bipartisan moment in 18 months in the country. Maybe, in fact, the only bipartisan moment in the last 18 months in the country. And as the Senate, of which, an alum, they're on the cusp of a brutal week, the second deployment of the Reid rule, where the rules of the Senate can be changed by a simple majority. So there is one side benefit besides the capacity and the stature of those members of the Senate. It is that they will be focused on the country will focus on a bipartisan proceeding into our enemy abroad, Russia, that operated through the FSB and the GRU through WikiLeaks. We know that. But what Warner said today about having 1,000 trolls using a bot to flood our zone with fake news, that's deeply worrisome. And the attention that only a Senate committee can bring back to the Watergate days, I think, is to be welcomed.
Let me assert my respect for you at the outset of this disagreement. These guys have I was on that committee for 8 years. I know how difficult the job is. And right now, it's even more difficult. We've got a very significant threat from North Korea, a very significant threat from ISIS, a very significant need to make certain that our intelligence or agencies are well-funded, organized right, and have the support of the Congress. This is heavy work. This is time. This takes a lot of time to do that work right. And as I said, I think the chances, even though I agree with it, it's a wonderful bipartisan moment, but the likelihood that the American people are going to trust the results of this is almost zero. But even if they did trust it, there's a better way of doing it.
Well, you mentioned the international issues that are also sort of out there. There's also in Washington the issue right now, and Hugh mentioned this a second ago, there's a Supreme Court nomination that's going to be pending here in the United States. And some new polling we can show you here. This is from Politico Morning Consult on Neil Gorsuch, Donald Trump's nominee to the Supreme Court. 44% Americans say they support confirmation. 23% say they don't believe he should be confirmed at this point. Hugh, the issue here that this seems to be coming down to in the Senate, though, is one of procedure. You mentioned this a second ago. Will the Democrats mount a filibuster? Will they try to force Republicans to come up with 60 votes to pass this, not a simple majority of 50? And if they do so, are Republicans then suggesting they would go with the so-called nuclear option and just end the filibuster? Any reason to think Republicans would flinch at all when it came to doing that?
I don't think so, Steve. I go back to the great British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli, who said a majority is better than the best repartee. And the majority is what Harry Reid deployed in 2013 to ruin the filibuster and the ability to stop all federal judges except the Supreme Court. I think the Reid rule will be deployed instantly because I do believe the Democrats have enough to deny Judge Gorsuch, easily at least as well qualified as any other federal judge in the country, his up or down vote. They're going to do that for political reasons having to do with the base of the Democratic Party, but he will be on the court, I think, by Easter.
I would ask you strategically, is this smart for Democrats?
You can't have a conversation about this without saying the Democrats remember that for almost an entire year, a highly qualified man that Gorsuch himself said is highly qualified didn't get an up or down vote. Yeah, Merrick Garland. There was at least as many Americans that said he should get an up or down vote as well.
So Democrats are angry about that. But here's the strategic question.
No, but it's more than just angry about it. It's legitimate to say you didn't give us a vote. Why?
But what happens?
I think Merrick Garland is was completely qualified. I think Gorsuch is, especially replacing Scalia. I mean, I'd probably vote for him. But they're entitled to say, "My God, we listened to you saying we're not even going to meet with him. We're not going to schedule a hearing. We're not going to give you a vote," even though it was almost a year.
But here's the dilemma. Here's the going forward for Democrats. If you do the filibuster here, and the Republicans then respond with this nuclear option and get rid of the filibuster, what happens if a year from now, 2 years from now, instead of a Republican president replacing Scalia, it's a Democratic vacancy, and you have the potential for a major shift on this court from a liberal justice to a Trump-appointed conservative? Would Democrats do well to preserve the filibuster for that moment rather than using it here?
Look, once again, I agree with you. I do think that eliminating the filibuster earlier by Senator Reid was a mistake. Either go all the way or don't start down this road. And I think the president's entitled to a considerable amount of respect when you're deciding whether or not to vote for his nominee. That's why, again, I think Democrats are well within their rights to say, my God, you guys held up a perfectly qualified person saying, we'll wait to the next election. At what point can the Democrats say the same thing? After the midterm? With 2 years out, 18 months out, 12 months out? Can they say to President Trump, you know, you guys didn't want a nominee, let's wait to the next election before we do it? So this process has been badly compromised. There's no question it's way too partisan, way too ideological in my view. Gorsuch, I think, would be a terrific associate justice on the bench, but you can't ignore what we previously went through with Merrick Garland.
So the Merrick Garland issue was overshadowed, was linked to, was tied up in the presidential campaign. We're talking about Russia and its influence